All right, here we go. Well, hello everyone. So we've arrived at our destination. This is the beautiful little town of Stanley, British Columbia. Let's take a look around. So gold was discovered here on the banks of Lightning Creek in 1861. The Cariboo Goldrush was underway, and about 15 miles to the east, the towns of Richfield and Barkerville had just sprung up. And here, on the banks of Lightning Creek, another town started, the town of Stanley. Although Barkerville was a more famous town, the population of Stanley exceeded that of Barkerville by the 1870s and into the 1880s. But by the 1900s, the population of Stanley had begun to decline. "100 years later, by the 1970s, all that remained were a few standing buildings amongst the ruins of the once prosperous town of Stanley. Throughout the 1970s, you could see ruins of the old town on both sides of the road, both coming up to the Lightning Inn and going on up Chisholm Creek. Today, even those ruins are gone, pushed down by the snow and covered over by the brush. Across from the Lightning Inn, and just a short distance up the road, were the only other standing buildings, still occupied by Tom and Lil Crawford. Tom and Lil Crawford were the last residents of Stanley, and they lived here up into the late 1980s. Tom and Lil are buried up in the Stanley Cemetery. So the Lightning Inn originally came from Richfield. The buildings of that town were torn down so that the ground underneath could be mined. At that time, the Lightning Inn was moved from Richfield to the town of Van Winkle. Van Winkle was a town just up Lightning Creek from Stanley. In 1873, the Lightning Inn was moved again from Van Winkle to its present location here in Stanley. Over the years, the building had several additions. Those additions have fallen down and since been removed, so that the building we see today is apparently the original structure that was moved from Richfield. No visit to Stanley is complete without a visit to its cemetery. The cemetery sits on a hill just to the west about a quarter mile. It overlooks the town site and Lightning Creek. Little reminder to self and to anybody watching this that's planning to come and visit. Bring mosquito and fly repellent. It's a good idea. So Stanley had a large Chinese population as well, and their wishes were if they died here, they would be shipped back to China and buried there. So usually the case was that the Chinese were actually buried here, and then in later years their bodies were dug up and they were shipped back to China so that their wishes were followed. Right here is a couple of the graves that were exhumed, and you can see depressions further back and more along the trail here, and those are graves of the Chinese that were exhumed and shipped back to China. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little trip into Stanley, and I appreciate your watching it. We'll see you in the next one.